This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider. Kamala Harris wanted to be President of the United States, but the Democrats picked Joe Biden as their candidate instead. Now that man could get her to the White House after all. He's picked a former prosecutor to be his running mate in an election this November where recent polls have shown a tightening of the gap between frontrunner Mr. Biden and incumbent Donald Trump. Will Miss Harris make the difference? Well, I'm joined by the chair of Democrats Abroad UK, Inga Kemtrub. And Inga, in the UK, Miss Harris isn't a very well-known name, so let's start with the basics. And apparently a lot of people have been pronouncing her first name wrong for a really long time.
Well, she is aware of this herself, and she has got a little thing she does. She says it's like the punctuation. It's comma, la, or comma, la, I guess it would be. So Kamala, not Kamala, as a lot of people are tempted to do. I think there's a man's name, Kamal, which might account for the confusion, but it's Kamala, yeah. So she had an Indian American mother and a Jamaican father. So she has both heritages, and so she ends up as Kamala.
That's interesting you brought up her American Indian mother there, because a lot's been made about her being the first black woman to run for vice president in the United States. But this is big for a lot of people in the Asian community as well, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, I think that the Asian American community is a little undervalued a lot of times in election. And it's a shame because they are a real force to reckon with in Silicon Valley, where she's nearby that, where she lives in the Bay Area. There are a lot of Indian Americans. It's certainly an active community, getting more active politically all the time, and they are starting to swing towards Democrats. So I think that's something that's going to be a factor in this race, and I think she will speak to that sort of her experience in both worlds. She was raised largely by her mother, as you may have read if you've heard about her biography as well. And she obviously, her mother had very high standards for her and about what she was going to do in her life, because she's had quite an impressive career. And I'm pretty excited about her being in the vice presidential seat.
Yeah, she's clearly on the ticket because the Biden team believe that she can pull in votes, maybe drag in some of those undecideds. But what I'm interested in is she ran to be president and she wasn't good enough for the Democrats for that job. Why is she good enough to be vice president?
Well, it's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, a lot of people run for president for a lot of different reasons. She has been on the national stage in the Senate, and certainly there she made her mark. A lot of people saw her in the Kavanaugh hearings. But the motivation for running for president might be sort of a first step in the water for a national platform. And I think that was partly what she was thinking. But, honestly, she just came across so well in the debates and in a personal thing. So I am hopeful that she will be just an excellent on the campaign trail, probably the Zoom campaign trail at the current time. But to have both of them there is really kind of exciting. And she always kind of has this smart quality, this quality about her that she's got it all together. And I think that a lot of Americans are pretty keen to have a contrast from the current incumbents in the White House right now.
She was fierce during those debates. She took no prisoners, and she did knock a lump or two out of Joe Biden himself. There was a key moment when they were talking about busing, and this was efforts to integrate schools in the United States. And she said she was one of those kids who got bused to schools, and that became a moment, and it hurt Biden, at least for a little bit. Can these two, after all that, now work together?
I think so. And I think the other thing I like about Kamala, and actually I like about Joe Biden for that reason as well, is they evolve. They are not static. They see what happens in the world. They learn from each other. So that comment may have hurt, but it also may have made him think. And what I like about Joe Biden is he listens. What I like about Kamala Harris is I think she also listens and changed her position. The other thing to note is when she ended her campaign, she immediately went and supported Joe Biden. There was absolutely no question, no ambiguity. She was ready with her support right then.
Something else that came up in those debates, though, was Kamala Harris's own record as a prosecutor in California and how she did things like jail people for cannabis use. Now, those sorts of issues are going to come up again and again as we head towards the vote in November. Will there be people who think we don't want someone like her who's that hard on crimes like that being vice president?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the persons who made the criticism was Tulsi Gabbard, who was presidential candidate. She made some of those comments. And we have to remember that Kamala Harris was a prosecutor, and that was part of her job, upholding the law of the land. And at that time, for example, marijuana was illegal in California. Again, that's evolved. We saw her prosecutor skills in action during the Kavanaugh hearings. So I'm kind of glad to have someone on my line who is a straight shooter, who follows that. And we've also seen her position evolve. But kind of more importantly than that, I find that she, as she said in that kickoff speech during the primary, she's committed to treating people with decency. And I find that so bracing, as opposed to all the personal attacking and the late night tweets and all the rubbish we get from the current incumbent.
Can that prosecutor background help her in something like the vice president debates when she's going to be coming up against Mike Pence, who is a very seasoned politician? He's a good talker.
Well, if you want my honest opinion, she's going to wipe the floor with him. But, you know, when you think about her, I mean, I mentioned her background as a prosecutor, but you also have to remember she has been in the Senate. She's been on some key committees like the Intelligence Committee. So she's got that aspect. She also ran as Attorney General a huge government department. So she's got the executive experience as well. So it's not just the courtroom experience we're seeing, but also, you know, executive and other sides. And having been in the senator's role for a while, she's also seen what's happened on the federal level and how to be most effective there. And she's pretty fierce.
But can Kamala Harris bring people in who may be thinking about voting for Donald Trump?
I think she can. One thing I'm going to mention is that I know a couple of people who were perhaps a little less enthusiastic about the Democratic ticket in 2016. And I was actually just looking at some of their feeds on Facebook right before I came here. And they're saying, you know, this is it. Okay, it may not be the perfect thing we wanted, but man, this is it. This is way more ahead. And I think a lot of people regard her as a pragmatic progressive. And I think that's going to be a lot for a lot of people.
So is this the team, Biden-Harris, that can win the White House?
I think so. I mean, to me, this is going to be the winning ticket of 2020. People are going to look at the kind of energy between them, and they clearly respect each other, and there's clearly a good relationship. And you also know that vetting process was very long, so they've been communicating with each other a lot. And I think they have a way of working together. They're going to be contrasting in terms of their personal styles, but that's kind of fine. I mean, Biden might have this sort of more calm, measured approach. She is a little more fiery in the way she expressed herself, but I think they're going to be great for each other. And I can't wait to see what they're going to do on the campaign trail.